Imagine living through a completely ordinary moment, people walking, working, or simply having fun. Everything seems normal until, in a matter of seconds, something totally unexpected happens and turns that peaceful scene into a real disaster. Most impressive of all is that, in some of these cases, cameras were recording at that exact moment, capturing the last seconds before everything spiraled out of control. On January 7, 2024, a police officer from the Maple Heights Police Department in the state of Ohio, United States, responded to an apparently simple call, but one that would quickly turn into an extremely dangerous situation. The police had been called around 9 o'clock in the morning after residents reported that a man was passed out at the wheel of a vehicle that was still running, stopped on a busy street in the area. When the first officer arrived at the scene, he found the driver truly unconscious, slumped over the steering wheel. Concerned about the situation, the officer opened the passenger door and turned off the vehicle to avoid any risk. However, the moment he began speaking to the driver, something unexpected happened. The man suddenly woke up, started the car again, and set the vehicle in motion. The officer still tried to pull the keys from the ignition, but the driver accelerated before he could react. Because the officer was positioned between the door and the interior of the vehicle, he ended up trapped inside the car as the suspect fled, initiating a police chase with an officer practically kidnapped inside the vehicle itself.
Don't do it. Hey, don't do it.
Other patrol units immediately began the pursuit. After a few tense moments, the driver briefly stopped the car, allowing the officer to get out safely. Even so, the suspect continued fleeing until he was finally detained by other police units. In 2025, a woman identified as Rachel Marie Warner, 23 years old, was arrested in Miami in the state of Florida, accused of carrying out a criminal scheme that targeted men she met on dates. According to police investigations, Rachel arranged meetings with her victims, usually in bars, hotels, or residences, and, during these meetings, placed intoxicating substances in the men's drinks without them noticing. After the victims became disoriented or unconscious because of the substances, she took advantage of the moment to steal high-value items and significant amounts of money. In one of the cases that most drew the attention of the authorities, Rachel allegedly gave the substance to a man during a date and stole from him a luxury Rolex watch, as well as approximately $18,000 in cash. The victim only realized what had happened after regaining consciousness and noticing that his belongings had disappeared. Based on the victim's account and the analysis of surveillance camera footage from the area where the meeting took place, investigators were able to identify the suspect and gather evidence linking Rachel to the crime. Authorities also began investigating the possibility that she may have victimized others using the same method. After collecting evidence and completing the formal identification, Rachel was located and arrested, being charged with multiple crimes related to theft, fraud, and the illegal administration of substances to incapacitate her victims. In 2012, security camera footage recorded a shocking moment inside a shopping center in Shanghai, China, when a huge aquarium full of sharks suddenly shattered among visitors. The tank, which was one of the venue's main attractions, contained about 33 tons of water, as well as sharks, fish, and sea turtles that were displayed to the public. The incident happened at the Shanghai Orient Shopping Center, where the large aquarium was installed near the entrance and constantly attracted curious onlookers who stopped to watch the animals. In the footage, you can see several people walking and even taking photos of the tank just seconds before the tragedy happened. Suddenly, without any warning, the aquarium's enormous acrylic panel breaks, releasing a veritable deluge of water that floods the shopping mall corridor. With the tank's explosion, water, pieces of glass, and the animals themselves were thrown outward, catching everyone by surprise. Visitors tried to run for cover as the water advanced quickly across the mall floor. Some people were even knocked down by the force of the water. In all, about 15 to 16 people were injured, including customers, employees, and mall security guards. Most suffered cuts and bruises caused by the debris. Despite the scare, the sharks did not attack anyone. But unfortunately, 3 sharks and dozens of other marine animals lost their lives after the accident. A digital influencer was caught in the surroundings of Buckingham Palace in London, England, where he was trying to produce content aimed at humor with the royal guards who were stationed there. As we know, the royal guards are highly trained to protect the palace, maintaining a serious posture and not being allowed to talk to people. Knowing this, the young man approached one of them, who was on horseback, and began to conduct a kind of interview, even though he knew the guard could not say anything or react. Because he was there making a fool out of the guard, many tourists who were nearby, including a man who was recording, began to criticize him. He clearly did not take the criticism well and started confronting people and the man who was filming, having to be restrained by the police, and he left in handcuffs and went through a huge embarrassment.
Shout at him. Go on. What else is he?
Leave that alone.
Yeah, stop being so goddamn rude.
He raises his voice, lunges toward the man who is recording the moment, when the police arrive out of nowhere and one of the officers takes him to the side to confront him, since he was creating unnecessary commotion at the location. Even with the approach, he remains aggressive and the officers handcuff him to take him to the police station. In the 7th episode of the first season of the show Fasten Your Seatbelt, aired by the A&E channel in 2021, one of the stories shown involves a passenger who ended up creating a big commotion inside an airplane because of a seat. During boarding, a passenger decided to sit in a better seat than the one that had been assigned to him, taking a place that belonged to someone else. At first, the man seemed to act as if it were just a mistake, but when the crew noticed the situation and asked him to return to the correct seat, he began to get more and more irritated. The passenger then started insisting that seat was his, even when other passengers and the flight attendants showed that the seat had been reserved by someone else. The argument quickly escalated, and the man began to raise his voice, argue with the crew, and refuse to obey the instructions of the onboard staff. With the atmosphere inside the aircraft becoming increasingly tense and the man refusing to cooperate, the crew decided to interrupt the takeoff process and call the airport authority. Shortly thereafter, police officers entered the aircraft to deal with the situation. Even in the presence of the officers, the passenger remained agitated and resisted orders, which brought him serious consequences. Faced with his refusal to leave voluntarily, the police had to remove him by force from the plane, dragging him down the aisle while other passengers watched the scene. The episode caused a flight delay and drew attention precisely for showing how a simple seat dispute can quickly get out of control, requiring police intervention to ensure the safety of everyone on board. An impressive video that has been circulating on the internet since 2012 shows an extremely tense moment at a construction site when a concrete pump truck ends up tipping over suddenly while its enormous mechanical arm was fully extended to carry out the pumping work. In the footage, recorded by someone who was close to the location, it is possible to see the equipment operating normally for a few moments, with the articulated arm raised above the construction area. Suddenly, the weight and load distribution seem to compromise the vehicle's stability. In just a few seconds, the truck begins to lean slowly to one side, while the raised arm further amplifies the machine's imbalance. Unable to regain stability, the truck ends up tipping over completely, taking with it the structure of the hydraulic arm that was raised. The most impressive thing is that the accident narrowly missed people who were nearby, which could have caused an even greater tragedy, and, despite the seriousness of the moment recorded, no one was injured. In 2023, a report aired by the broadcaster Fox 13 Memphis showed impressive footage of an extremely dangerous road in Memphis, in the state of Tennessee, after a strong winter storm hit the region known as the Mid-South of the United States. The low temperatures left several streets and highways covered by so-called black ice, or black ice, which is an extremely thin, transparent, and invisible layer of ice that forms over dark asphalt. Unlike snow or thick ice, it does not look white or whitish, which makes it almost impossible to detect visually and creates extremely dangerous conditions for anyone who is driving. In the video shown by the broadcaster, it is possible to see that a car had already crashed earlier because of the ice and was being removed from the roadway by a tow truck, while a police cruiser remained at the scene to control traffic and ensure safety during the operation. While the tow truck worked to remove the vehicle, another car appears approaching along the road. The driver apparently tries to slow down, but the ice prevents the tires from having enough traction. In a few seconds, the vehicle completely loses control, begins to slide along the road, and ends up colliding, causing yet another accident, practically at the same spot where the teams were already working. On the same day, several other vehicles were also recorded sliding at the same location. However, they managed to regain control of the vehicle again, avoiding more accidents. Fortunately, despite the scare and the dangerous situation, the episode served mainly as a warning about how treacherous ice-covered roads can be, where even drivers who try to drive carefully can end up losing control of the vehicle. In 2024, an impressive video captured the exact moment when the Juscelino Kubitschek de Oliveira Bridge collapsed over the Tocantins River. The recording was made by the city councilman of Aguiarnopolis, Brazil, Elias Jr., who was there precisely to report structural problems on the bridge that connects the states of Tocantins, Brazil and Maranhão, Brazil. In the structure, warning about the bridge's worrying condition. As he recorded and commented on the conditions at the site, something unexpected happened. Part of the structure began to give way in front of the camera. Within a few seconds, the bridge's central span suddenly collapsed, causing a scene of desperation. People who were nearby began shouting for him to move away, while he ran to get out of the area upon realizing the structure was falling. He fortunately managed to escape in time, chopping the lake right in his shed. The bridge, inaugurated in the early 1960s and about 533 meters long, was an important road link between the two states and was part of strategic transportation routes in the region. At the moment of the collapse, several vehicles were crossing the structure, including cars, motorcycles, and trucks, some of which ended up falling into the river when the central section gave way. The accident mobilized teams from the fire department, the police, and divers for rescue operations. The disaster left people missing and required a large search operation, in addition to raising environmental concerns, since trucks carrying chemical products also fell into the river during the collapse. A striking video recorded on July 14th, 1999, shows the exact moment when the enormous crane, known as Big Blue, collapsed during the construction of Miller Park Stadium in Milwaukee, in the state of Wisconsin, in the United States. The footage was taken by an employee of a company that was on site conducting a safety inspection and ended up capturing, by chance, one of the most famous accidents in the history of civil construction. At the moment of the recording, the gigantic crane was being used to lift a huge section of the stadium's retractable roof, which weighed more than 450 tons. As the operation was taking place, the inspector filmed the apparently routine process. However, just a few seconds later, something began to go wrong. The video captures a loud metallic noise, followed by warning shouts from people on site, indicating that the equipment structure was failing. Next, the enormous crane loses stability and collapses violently inside the construction site, bringing down its gigantic structure and part of the equipment used to lift the roof piece. The impact was devastating and struck a platform where workers were watching the operation.
Hey, watch it, watch it! Shit!
The accident ended up resulting in the death of 3 construction workers and left 5 other people injured, becoming one of the best-known tragedies in large-scale works in the United States. Subsequent investigations concluded that the crane was being operated outside safe specifications, mainly because of the combination of the load's weight and the strong winds recorded at that moment, which even exceeded the recommended limit for this type of equipment. Other factors, such as planning failures and structural problems in the crane system, were also cited as contributors to the disaster. One of the most shocking accidents ever recorded at music events happened on August 13th, 2011, during the Indiana State Fair in Indianapolis in the United States. That night, thousands of people were gathered in front of the stage waiting for the start of the show by the country duo Sugarland, who would perform as part of their tour. Minutes before the show began, the weather started to change rapidly. A strong storm was approaching the area, bringing increasingly intense winds. Even with severe weather warnings, the crowd remained in the stage area waiting for the performance to begin. Shortly before 21 o'clock, while the band was still getting ready to go on stage, a strong gust of wind hit the stage structure, which was temporary and supported large lighting and sound equipment. Within seconds, the huge metal structure began to sway violently and collapsed onto the crowd that was right in front of it, causing widespread panic. The stage roof, along with lighting towers and metal beams, fell, while people nearby ran desperately, trying to escape. Several people needed to be rescued and taken to the hospital. Later investigations pointed out that the collapse was caused mainly by an extremely strong gust of wind associated with a storm, which struck the stage structure shortly before the audience could be evacuated. The gust reached about 110 kilometers, enough force to bring down the metal structure that supported the stage and the equipment. A worker ended up not having a lucky day when he was helping to fill the foundation of a construction site with concrete. The video filmed by another worker who decided to record the moment shows that as soon as the concrete starts to pour from the truck and fill the hole, the man who was down inside didn't pay attention and let the concrete hit one of his boots, which ends up being pulled in by the weight and density of the concrete. When he tries to pull the boot out, it gets stuck. He then pulls his leg free, leaves the boot behind in the middle of the concrete, and it ends up being quickly covered by the huge amount of concrete pouring down there. At one point, they even stop the concrete flow to try to recover the buried boot, but they can't, and they decide to just leave it there. He ends up having to get another shoe to keep working, and his distraction, combined with the funny moment, made the video go viral quickly on the internet. On February 2, 2018, during a court hearing in Michigan, United States, Randall Margraves, father of 3 of Larry Nassar's victims, tried to attack the former doctor of the United States gymnastics team. Larry Nassar is a former American osteopathic physician who served as the doctor for the United States women's national gymnastics team from 1996 to 2014. During that period, he used his position to assault, in the worst possible way, hundreds of young athletes under the pretext of medical treatments, constituting one of the biggest scandals in the history of sports. In 2016, Nassar was arrested and charged with multiple crimes. After hearing the testimonies of 2 of his daughters about the assaults they suffered, Margraves asked the judge for 5 minutes alone with Nassar in a locked room. Faced with the refusal, he insisted, asking for 1 minute, but refused again. He lunged toward Nassar to try to assault him, creating a major commotion at the scene.
Our legal system.
Before he could reach Nassar, the victim's father was restrained by security officers and removed from the courtroom. The incident, recorded on video, quickly went viral on the internet, highlighting the profound pain and outrage of the victim's family members in the face of the crimes committed by Nassar. Body camera footage released by police shows a tense confrontation between authorities and an armed woman inside a Walmart store in the state of Florida, United States. According to authorities, police were called after reports that a woman was threatening customers and employees inside the store. Witnesses stated that the woman initially entered the establishment holding a brick and intimidating people. Then, she found a pocket knife that was for sale in the store, opened the packaging using a pair of scissors, and began wielding it inside the premises. When Officer Christopher Whitty arrived at the scene, he found the suspect in the Walmart clothing section holding the pocket knife and making incoherent statements. The officer repeatedly gave clear orders for her to drop the weapon, but the woman identified as Brandy McGowan ignored the instructions and continued holding the object while speaking in a confused manner. Given her refusal to comply and the risk to the people who were in the store, the officer decided to act by using a taser. The electric shock caused her to lose control momentarily, allowing officers to approach, remove the pocket knife from her hands, and handcuff her safely. After receiving medical attention, she was taken to the Marion County Jail, where she was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Don't forget to subscribe to watch more videos like Zier's